So these chickpeas have been soaking for 24 hours. You can do a quick soak option if you're short for time, which involves boiling them for 5 minutes, leaving them to soak for an hour. Then, as before, you drain the water and you add some fresh boiling water and boil them for another 30 minutes. So now that the chickpeas have had their 30-minute boil, we're now going to get them into the jars and get them in the canner. I'm using my funnel just to keep the rim of the jars nice and clear of debris, just in case. Now I'm not being too fussy here, I'm collecting the water as I go along because we want the juice in with those chickpeas. We don't want them in dry, we're not going to top them up, we're just going to use the bean water that's in there. If they are running a little low, you can top them up with a little bit of fresh boiling water. Plenty of liquid in these ones because they are going to absorb it. My lid now. Make sure the seal's all around, tucked in nicely. And clamp it on. With my hand on top of the jar first, clamping that round the side, just like that, ready to go in. Right, so now the chickpeas are ready to go in. We're going to put them in the canner. As you can see, I've already got some jars in there. This is the 23, so it's the taller model. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a secondary rack in here just to sit those on. And I'm going to put in my chickpeas. What I do is I try and make sure that I stagger stack them on top of the other jars just to even out the weight a bit. Make sure none of the tabs pointing at the other jars, just in case they bite. And we're done. I'm going to put this back on the heat now. Now my 10-minute timer has just gone off, and as you can see, my little pressure lock has just popped up. I'm now going to put the weight on, wait for it to come up to pressure. When it comes up to pressure, I will then turn the heat down to keep it at a continuous rock. I shall see you in about 10 minutes. So as you can see here, it is just starting to come up to pressure. Trying to hold the camera as still as I can, sorry. So it's just starting to rock, the gauge has just hit 10 pounds. So I've just turned the heat off in the canner. As you can see, the weight has already settled down. You will now see the pressure on the gauge start to drop as there's no longer any heat to build further pressure. As you can see, the pressure has come right down now. We'll just give it a little minute with the weight off to vent the excess. You see the pressure lock drop there. Which means there's no pressure remaining in the canner. So we're going to let it sit with the weight off for 10 minutes and then we'll come back and take the lid off. So we've now given that 10 minutes and it's time to take the lid off the canner. So what we do is we twist it to release and then we tilt it up like that so that the steam releases away from us. I'm now going to leave it for an additional 10 minutes. I have found that this makes a significant difference to any siphoning issues. I have practically no siphoning the way I do it. I have found I used to have a lot of issues, but having adjusted my technique with A, using 2 clips on the jars instead of 3, and B, adding this extra 10-minute wait on after opening the lid has made a massive difference. Okay, we've now reached the point where it's time to remove the jars from the canner. So we've taken the lid off, given them an extra 10-minute wait, and now I'm going to use my tongs to just clasp the jar, pull it up carefully, keeping it straight. And if you can see, that's bubbling away inside. Last one, all bubbling nicely. So the bubbling indicates that there is a good seal forming. Now, as you can see, there has been some foam that's formed on top of the chickpeas. This is because the liquid that is now in the jar is aquafaba, which is, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, I've got to be honest, but it's spelt aquafaba, which works really well as a substitute for making meringues, many other things. So, having sat for 24 hours, I am now going to check the chickpeas. As you can see, they're no longer bubbling. We've got a tiny bit of limescale on top. Didn't use quite enough vinegar in there. And give them a quick wipe. Okay. So it's been 24 hours since we have taken the chickpeas out of the canner. I'm now going to remove the clips. Make sure to put my thumb on top so that the clips don't spring off, and take them off like that. I then hold the jar and hang it by the lid, and as you can see there is no movement whatsoever. I make sure I'm holding just the lid, not the jar on that one. No. As you can see, the tabs are all pointed nicely down, which is a good indication. I find that when taking them out of the canner, they're often bubbling on the inside. Any that aren't bubbling on the inside may not seal well. That's not necessarily every time, but that is a general rule that I have found, is that if they are bubbling when they come out of the canner, and most of mine are, then they will produce a good seal. So those are all done, ready. I will give them a little wipe off now just to remove any residue on the jars themselves before I store them. Job done. Enjoy. So this was our lunch today while I was editing. Several things that I've used my canned chickpeas for in the last week are, we have made aquafaba meringue, I have made a giant batch of falafel, which is always surprisingly easy, and houmous, which is a big staple in our house, especially delicious with the wild garlic that's out at the moment. If there's anything else you'd like to see in these videos, please let me know, or if there's anything you think I'm forgetting, tell me that too.